Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Driving Innovation and Understanding the Financial Support Available. I am Manuels, Partnership Manager for SEMLEP. SEMLEP is a public-private body whose role is to help economic growth thrive across the South East Midlands. In this difficult time, SEMLEP's Growth Hub is focusing on supporting businesses like yours through our business support team and webinars like these. During this webinar, we welcome your questions. So if you could please type them in the chat section, that would be great. At a time of national and global change, it is crucial that the UK continues to provide the best possible environment for research and innovation to flourish. Julian Bowery, Regional Manager East and South East Midlands from Innovate UK, will share how UK businesses driving innovation and development will be helped through the coronavirus outbreak. Vic Ulfik, Head of Research and Development from Fortis, will stress how R&D tax reliefs can also help with so much cash flow stress right now. Finally, we will be hearing how Kieran Salter, Managing Director of KW Special Projects, has developed novel solutions to clients after benefiting from Innovate UK funding and R&D tax credits. Julian, we will start with you, please.
Super. Morning, everyone. I'll just put my screen up. Hopefully. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? I hope so. Right. So really good to be here. As Emmanuel said, I'm the regional manager for this part of the world for Innovate UK, which is part of UK R&I, research and innovation. And we spend about 7 million, although it's gone up in recent months, 7 billion a year of taxpayers' money supporting research in universities and also innovative companies and helping them to grow. So what I'll do is I'll just run through just briefly the sort of funding offer we've got available at the moment, and then hopefully we'll have time for questions and discussion around that. So for those of you who don't know, then Innovate UK is the UK's innovation agency. As I say, we're part of a larger Quango, which is an agency of the business department, which is supporting research and innovation. And our role is very much to provide support and encouragement to help innovative companies to grow, to succeed, to employ more people, to pay more tax. What's there not to like? And we do that in two ways. We do that through providing money, that's both grants and loans, and also providing business support. And that's both sector support through our sister agency, the Knowledge Transfer Network, and also individual business advice and support for companies through the Enterprise Europe Network. So please do take a look at what we have to offer. We offer a lot more than just funding opportunities, you know, frankly, because there's always going to be more companies looking for money than we do have money available, then actually sometimes the business support we can provide, the connections we can make are probably more useful in the long run than some of the funding. I was hoping I'd be able to say a bit more about this, but we're still waiting on the government to finalise the right-hand side of the screen. So just to take you through what we've been doing around the COVID crisis. So we've been, as you'd expect, supporting the immediate response. So some companies actually in the SEMLEP area, I know Red Bull, have been heavily involved in the ventilator challenge. So rapidly scaling up ventilator production at the time that the government thought that we were going to have a major shortage of ventilators. I mean, that Thankfully, it hasn't proved to be the case, but nevertheless, Project Pit Lane, which was a collaboration between the government and the F1 industry, very much located, this is Semlep is the heartland of that, were centrally involved in the ventilator challenge, which has been great. We've also been involved in vaccine manufacture through Medicines Manufacturing Catapult. We've been working with companies around testing and therapeutics, and also UK Research and Innovation is running an open call for any ideas that people have, whether that's a research idea or some other innovation that can support our response to the immediate crisis. So, for example, if you are a drone supplier who think they've got great ideas either for the surveillance of social distancing, not that I approve of that particularly, but it's a business need, or transporting emergency medicines around remote areas in times of lockdown, then the UK and I open call is available to you. What we've also been doing as Innovate is we realised quite early on that innovative companies have different needs to the mainstream business community, because quite often innovative companies are still in pre-profit mode, if you like. Quite often they'll be based in serviced offices. So it transpired that actually the business support package that the Chancellor announced didn't quite hit the spot for innovative companies. So we argued with Treasury and Bays that there should be specific support for innovative companies. And on the 20th of April, £750 million of extra support was offered. That built on a £20 million fast call that we ran that actually closed a couple of weeks ago. We got over 8,500 applications for that 20 million call. So I think that showed to us that there is a demand for the sorts of funding support we're offering. And at the moment, the announcement of the 20th of April, and we're hoping that there'll be some details shortly. As I was saying to Emmanuel and colleagues yesterday, I was hoping that I'd be able to announce it in a bit more detail today, but I can't really preempt ministers. So there's 750 million was announced. There's 200 million pounds. So if you are there are about 2,500 companies that Innovate UK is already supporting. If you're one of those, then there's potentially 500 million pounds on the table to continue to allow you to trade, to continue to allow you to develop your innovation. And 200 million of that is we're going to bring forward money that has already been allocated. So you'll get money up front rather than 3 months in arrears to ease cash flow. And also there's an extra 300 million, which is a combination of loans and grants to support those existing companies. And that hopefully will be more rapid to get out to you than some of our other grants, just because you've already gone through the due diligence process. So we don't need to ask you the questions about, what is your idea, because we already know that. Then there'll be an extra £211 million, which we hope will support about 1,200 new companies to the tune of £175,000 grants. That's linked to the EU de minimis limit of state aid, and that just means that we can get the money out more quickly rather than going to the bureaucracy of having to test you for EU state aid. So it's not for massive projects, but hopefully it will keep things ticking over, allow you to develop new ideas. Because what we're really keen to do is to continue to make sure that we have an innovation sector within this country. And when we come out of this, then you're ready to grow, you're ready to lead the recovery. And the final portion of the money is extra business support through the Enterprise Europe network, where we hope to support 6,000 companies until March 2022. And that will be a combination of our existing clients and also 1,000 high growth companies that will be triaged, if you like, from existing growth hubs into the EN to take advantage of the specialist business support that they can offer. So hopefully you can see, and I'll be interested to get your feedback, that Innovate has been batting really on your behalf as innovation companies to try and get extra targeted support for you. Alongside that, it's very much business as usual. So our mainstream programs, whether that's the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund or the Smart Open program, are running as business as usual. Although we have said that we've delayed some of the competitions and we've extended some of the deadlines. And that's both to give us space to do all the extra administration with the new monies that we've got, but also we recognise if you've got staff who are furloughed, if you're working remotely, then it's not so easy to meet the deadlines that we set. So we have extended some of those deadlines. So do keep a lookout on the gov.uk innovation pages about any changes to that. And just to flag a couple that of things that might be particularly relevant, we announced at the beginning of the week £60 million around future flight. So I know advanced manufacturing, Cranfield's expertise in aerospace means there are a number of companies who probably are playing in the future flight space. So we've announced 2 competitions through the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund this week. Closing date is at the end of July. So in that respect, it's business as usual. So if you're in that area, do take a look at the website. It is business as usual. There will be KTM briefings. There'll be online briefings rather than face-to-face briefings, but we are trying to run business as usual as much as we can. And likewise with smart funding, we are continuing to run our open competitions on the basis of as soon as one finishes, the next one starts. The latest round, you'll have to be quick, closes on the 27th of May. But as I say, a new one will open immediately afterwards. And that's for any company in any area. If you've got an innovative new idea for a product or service, then apply for that competition. So finally, some tips just to as a reminder, do make use of Knowledge Transfer Network. It's a great way to build your connections, to build partnerships, to help you understand the innovation landscape in your areas of interest. Do sign up to the Innovate UK email alerts on gov.uk. If you're interested in that specific business support, contact EEN. And I would just repeat, we are trying to maintain business as usual. So although we have put in place some special funding, then if your innovation is not in any way COVID related, that doesn't matter. We still want to support you. We're still very much open for business. And with that, I shall probably shut up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julian. A lot available there, so it's good news, really. And it's important to receive, to sort of subscribe to your competition, so people can keep being updated of what funding is available and coming. We don't seem to have any questions at the moment, so.
Can I ask a question of colleagues? How many of you are in the category of already customers, if you like, of Innovate UK? So I'd be interested to know who on the webinar is already receiving support or financial support in particular from Innovate, because obviously we have tried to separate out support for existing clients and support for new businesses. So I'd just be interested to know if there are people who've already got Innovate grants who are thinking, oh, 500 million quid, that looks nice.
We've got some questions coming actually, Julian.
Cool, good.
Okay, right. Does this mean currently in a funded program or previously funded?
I think it's in a currently funded program.
Okay.
So if you have one with the TSB that finished 8 or 9 years ago, we're probably not going to reopen that relationship. But if you're in a currently funded program.
All right, I think we've got another question as well. Please, could you give some quick example of business support that EEN can offer?
EEN run a program called Innovate to Succeed. That is targeted at companies that are wanting to grow through innovation and hopefully wanting to grow quite quickly. So it's specialist business support provided by advisors who have expertise in that particular area, both the technology area and also in how do you, if you are a rapidly growing, ambitious business, EN colleagues know the sorts of challenges you're going through, the sorts of funding pitches that you might be making in a way that complements the existing expertise that your colleagues in the Growth Hub obviously have, Manuel.
Okay, thank you. Bear with me. I think we've got.
And sorry, and international partnering. We have over 75 reciprocal arrangements with different support services around the world.
Okay, we just received a message from someone saying not currently being funded.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Not currently
being funded.
Pass.
Sorry, can you hear me, Julian?
Yeah, sorry, yeah. I didn't catch that.
We've just got a delegate, commenting on not currently being funded. So I understand answering the question you were asking earlier, who's been receiving funding.
Yeah.
We might be able to contact delegates afterwards and find that out for you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, in a way, we're still waiting on the detail. But my understanding at the moment is certainly the 200 million is money that's already been allocated to projects, will just be fast tracked, so we get it out of our bank accounts into yours. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Julian. If you could stop sharing your presentation, and we're going to ask Vic to talk to us about the benefit of R&D tax credits and how to help cash flow at this moment in time, please.
Cool. So I've freed things up hopefully now for Vic. Yep.
Thank you.
Cool. Pleasure.
Okay, good morning everyone. Thanks for joining us. The R&D tax credit scheme is one of the tax reliefs currently available which can help support your cash flow now, especially in these difficult times. So today I'll address some of the common questions that surround the scheme that will hopefully give you a bit more incentive probably to look into it a bit more and maybe take advantage of it. So today I'll cover, clearly we're a team and I head up the team within Fortis, but there's a group of people that do a great job behind me. Then I'll move into the R&D tax credit scheme, just give you a quick overview, what it's all about and who's it's for, how to identify what is claimable R&D activity, and I'll address that issue in a greater detail because not all R&D is claimable. What costs you can claim for, what's needed for an R&D tax credit claim, and then some typical R&D tax credit questions that come up that if it doesn't answer all your questions that you have following the presentation, I can address in some detail. So, quick look at the team. We're a lovely bunch, happy to help. So, overview of the scheme. There's two UK schemes for tax credits that reimburse people who are engaged in innovation within R&D. There's the SMEs scheme and the RDEC scheme, and today I'll be mostly concentrating on the SMEs scheme because that suits the size of companies that typically we serve most of, and that's companies that have 500 or less employees and have a turnover of less than 88 million euros. It's designed to keep the UK competitive, and most countries in the developed world have some sort of R&D tax credit scheme. And the UK scheme is very similar to most countries. HMRC are very proud of it, and that's why they continue to fund it. But also it drives innovation within our country to make us more competitive. It was introduced 20 years ago, so if you haven't heard of it, it's no surprise, because it's not heavily marketed, or wasn't heavily marketed in the early years. But now more and more people are seeing it as a great way to be rewarded for work that they probably have seen in the past as normal activity, but actually qualifies under the scheme. It was a slow uptake to start, but as I said, things are starting to improve, and I think now currently there's about 15,000 applications a year approved by HMRC. That said, 80% of all qualifying companies are not claiming, and you may well fall into one of those categories. It's a huge surprise, isn't it, that still after 20 years, 80% of companies that could qualify still aren't. And maybe by the end of this presentation, you'll see that actually the scheme does apply to you and the work that you carry out. So what is it and who's it for? Interestingly enough, it's a scheme to reward innovators, and quite often people don't really believe that they actually are innovating. But one of the key questions I commonly ask clients is, do you employ an engineer or a designer or a developer? And if you can answer yes to that, the reason is that if you're employing those people, you're solving problems. And if you're solving problems, you could be innovating and doing activities that could be claimable under the scheme. Oh, that's interesting. It's for UK companies that are registered within the UK, and also where LLPs, limited liability partnerships, where the lead company is also registered. HMRC often speak about strategic R&D as being part of the scheme. And that's great, and it's for planned R&D, but quite often we come across a lot of R&D which is what I'd call accidental, and it arises out of a piece of work that people are carrying out where they can't resolve the technical or scientific issues readily, and as a result they move into more concentrated R&D. And as I said earlier, there's two schemes. There's the RDIC scheme for large companies and the SME scheme, which we'll be concentrating on mostly today. If you'd like a bit of more of an insight following today's chat, you can go onto HMRC's website and download the BIS guidelines. And that's quite a top, like an umbrella guide to the scheme itself. It makes lots of references for more information, but it'll give you a general overview of the scheme, which I'm going to address now. So how do you claim, and how do you identify claimable activity, and what is it? So HMRC say it shouldn't be readily deducible by a competent professional in the field. In other words, the work you're doing should be complex and not resolved easily if you're an experienced person within your field of work. The second criteria is that it should contain technical or scientific uncertainties. In layman's terms, you should have experienced some problems. And the last one, it should seek to advance science or technology. In other words, what you did help to achieve the outcome. So just in summary, the work should be complex. It should have inherent problems which are difficult to solve, and in solving those problems you will advance science or technology. What's a claimable R&D activity? Development of new products, new processes or services, or enhancing existing products, processes or services that you already have. And sometimes we come across things that are moved from phase 1 development into phase 2. Well, phase 1 was successful and it's been sold or used or produced, But phase 2 is where they want to enhance it even further, and that might mean that may mean using different materials, making it quicker, more accurate, whatever. It's for strategic work or projects, but equally it applies to accidental work that you come across, as in you started work thinking it could be resolved generally within your field of experience, and you hit a snag, and you move into some work that clearly is claimable under the R&D scheme. So let's look at this, what is claimable activity in a little bit more detail. I said before that you should be facing some complex issues that have problems, and normally when faced with that, we engineers or software developers, anybody who's solving problems, usually comes up with some sort of design, as in well, this is what I would normally do. We then test that, and then following that test, we look at the results. Did it or did it not achieve what I wanted it to do? If it did, fine, absolutely, and you go off and manufacture it or develop it and a little bit further and move on. If you didn't, and it didn't achieve what you wanted it to achieve, there's room for further development. So that is what I'd call the first iterative stage. Now, for qualifier and R&D, there must be more than one of those. So if you move on then to the second iteration, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, that's where you're starting to, you clearly can't solve this issue readily or easily, and it means that over time, you're having to employ more than one attempt, more than one design, and you'll constantly look at the results to see if it's getting you where you need to be. That said, there's always a start point to your research in the terms of your baseline, and there's usually an end point of which you want to reach, and that will contain some unit of measurement, and that could be speed, elasticity, longevity, time, and whatever you decide to be measuring, but you will be measuring it in some way, shape or form. So just to recap, R&D that satisfies the rules of the scheme are iterative developments over a period of time, and hopefully that little diagram gives you a good enough view of what iterative design looks like. And if you are doing it, you'll know, because it's painful. So once we're doing all this iterative design, what costs can you claim for? Most claims, the predominant cost is the employee's time. Then we might use subcontractors to help us, and something HMRC call externally provided workers. They're workers that work for you under your guidance and might be contracted to you for a period of time. Then we've got consumable materials. That's the things that were used up or wasted or destroyed in the R&D. We have some software costs, and that's usually development software, not Windows or MS Office. It could be architectural design software, it could be CAD software or manufacturing type software. And then we've got utilities, and that's your gas, water and electric. And then lastly, if you're doing pharmaceutical research, you might involve the use of clinical trial volunteers, and that's an additional cost that could be claimed for. So what's needed then? How do you go about it? You'll need to prove your R&D activity. And to do that, we provide our clients with a technical report, which we write based on their experiences of the work they did, and we then submit that to HMRC together with the proof of claimable expenditure. And that's the money that we just identified earlier in the earlier slide. That's your employee costs or a percentage of your materials and consumable costs, etc. So those two reports are outcomes of the work that we do or anybody else would do that then is submitted to HMRC. So Just moving on to the last slide and a few questions that you've probably got. Hopefully, I'll answer. How can I claim? Well, you can use your own accountant or an expert like Fortis. How much was it worth, and what do you get back? Well, for a SME organisation that's in profit and paying tax at 19%, you're going to get back just shy of £25,000 for every £100,000 of qualifying expenditure. So for some people, it can be very lucrative. But equally, if you get something back, it does help reward you for what you've been doing and might help with your cash flow. How far can you go back? Well, if you're paying your corporation tax or been registered for corporation tax and been trading, you can normally go back over two years. But that also depends on when your tax year end is. Do you need to be profitable? No, you don't. Do you need to have paid corporation tax? No, you don't. How long does an R&D claim take? Well, it can take as little as 10 days. It's dependent really on two things. How quickly you can provide information for the technical report, and how quickly you can provide the historical costs that you incurred for the work that you did. But it can take very little time to produce. An HMRC, once it's been submitted, have a commitment of 28 days to pay out. And how do you get your money? Well, that can be if it's a historical claim and you've already paid corporation tax, or you'll pass that year end, it'll be a cash refund from HMRC. Or if it's in the current year, that claim value can go into your current accounts and with a reduction of your tax liability. And it can be as simple as that. So I'll move on to any questions.
Thank you, Vic, for a clear and concise explanation. And it's a no-brainer, really. But as you said, so many companies, don't think they are actually eligible to it. We don't have any questions at the moment, but I have one. You talked about CAD software for architects.
Yes.
Does this mean that if you are an architectural practice dealing with the domestic market and you use CAD software, are you eligible to R&D tax credit?
It's more around, is the work you're doing eligible? It doesn't matter for the market. It doesn't matter whether it's a domestic market or commercial market. It's the fact that you're carrying out qualifying R&D, and yes, that software would be an eligible cost. And it could be a standalone purchase cost, or it could be a license fee that you're paying. That would be eligible. Okay,
and what about the design IDs, which are specific to each client? Would that come under?
It's just for the software license, it's not related to the cost for each client. It's an annual fee that we take a percentage of.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you, Vic. Maybe we leave the question until the end. So, Kieran, it's great to have you here because you have the experience of getting funding from Innovate UK, and also you've claimed, I understand, R&D credit for 10 years now. So it's great to hear about all the opportunities businesses can get. But when we can hear it from someone like yourself, it's even more, exciting, really. And it's great to hear that how you've utilized that. So over to you, Kieran, please.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see so many attendees and a couple of names there that I recognise. For those of you that don't know, perhaps I'll just give a quick background to my business and what we do and how we've ended up exploiting some of these opportunities and financial support services that are out there for businesses like ours. I started off in business on my own in 2002, having spent 10 years in the motorsport industry. I set up a motorsport company called KW Motorsport, which was a very small business, employed a couple of people doing race engineering and race car design activities, and really had very little overheads. But even then, we were conducting some R&D, as it turns out. We, like many other businesses in motorsport, recognised quite a while ago that in order to be sustainable, we probably need to diversify. And being engineers first and foremost, and using motorsport to play at engineering, we had really good grounding to start to diversify and transfer that technology into other sectors. To cut a long story short, from 2002 through to 2012, then in 2012, I span out a new business called KDB Special Projects, which was the business in order to facilitate that transfer of technology from motorsport into other sectors, and also to build a business where we could invest in people and IP and build a business that had more substance than just being a service provider around racetrack activities. Currently, we employ about 20, 25 people. It has been up to about 30, 35, being subject to some of the projects we've had in the past. But we clearly employ a number of those people are engineers and conducting R&D activities. The kind of work we get involved with at the moment involves digital manufacturing and digital deposition. So we actually design and build automated machinery and special purpose machines that are usually one-off, first of kind to market for developing new manufacturing process. But we also still carry on with some of our automotive, motorsport related activities around lightweighting and design of full vehicles, and also some performance sports activities. So it's not particularly well known, but in 2018, we actually went to the Winter Olympics with Team GB, where our company did all of the R&D work around the equipment that was used for those athletes in a 4-year development cycle leading up to the Olympics. We also build wind tunnels for cycling. So it's a very broad set of technologies, but they all are coming from some high-tech and advanced manufacturing techniques or advanced design methodologies. How we've then tapped into Innovate UK, for example, has been very interesting, because I think it's quite tempting to look at what grant funding is out there and try and adapt your business to fit the grant funding. And my strong recommendation is continue with your business strategy and look for the grant funding that matches what you want to do with your business. If you try and force your project into a grant pot, it won't work. But if you can find the right grant theme and the right funding mechanism for things you're already doing, then it can make you certainly much more competitive, certainly can accelerate development of your projects, and is a win-win for everybody. Because I think the important thing to remember with anything, grant funding in particular, is there's no such thing as free money, and you need to earn it. You need to do some work for it. So with Innovate UK, for example, you need to exploit the project that you're developing. It shouldn't just be a folly. It should be something that you genuinely see a commercial opportunity for, and that you can demonstrate to Innovate UK that you will be able to exploit that technology at some point commercially. And in fact, that's an important part of writing your grant application, is that you can show value for money. And I think that's sometimes lost, and people look at grant money as free money, and we need to understand how you get it and what it's for. But it can be a significant advantage if you were already, for example, in our case, for example, looking at a new manufacturing technology for ceramics using additive manufacturing. We couldn't have afforded to do that project on our own, and certainly not in the timeframes that we would like to do it, to exploit it. But with the support of Innovate UK and getting 70% of that project funded by government, essentially through R&D, it can suddenly make a big difference to the competitiveness of our business. And if that's the case, then it's the competitiveness of the UK. So just bear in mind what Innovate UK money is for. R&D tax credits, on the other hand, are probably as close as you can get to free money that there is. This is money that you've already allocated for projects and already spent, and there's an opportunity there through government to reclaim that and use it. And it's again, as Vic said, and he doesn't do our R&D tax credits, by the way, so we're not being bribed in any way for this credit. But R&D tax credits, if you choose the right people to do those claims for you, can be a significant payback and allow you to reinvest back into your business. And we've been claiming R&D tax credits now since 2012 through KWSP. I don't think even though we're a profitable business, we've ever had to pay any corporation tax. And typically we also do get a cash refund as well. So I think last year we were somewhere around £40,000, £50,000 back from R&D tax credits. I think also it's worth mentioning that you should recognise what you don't know and where you need help, and find the right consultants to help you with your application. So if it's Innovate UK, there are good consultants out there to help you with finding that data that you need for value for money, for writing the grant application around the stuff that's not just technical. So you might already have the technical expertise, but please find the other expertise you need to help with structuring your grant. And certainly for R&D tax credits, we found that our normal accountants weren't the right people to do R&D tax credits because it needed, again, some technical content. So we use an external consultant that is specifically focused on R&D tax credits, and that gives you the maximum opportunity to claim them, really. Also, I'd say with R&D tax credits, don't be too greedy, because it's not an exact science, and it can be quite easy to overstate your claim if you have the wrong advice, and that could lead to difficulties later on. And the other sort of support mechanisms that we haven't talked about, but you may have seen that KWSP has benefited from is not just Innovate UK and R&D tax credits, but also SEMLEP and regional growth funds. So we are fortunate enough to have put together a very strong project. And I talk about external consultants, and I think Toby Warren's on this webinar. He's an external consultant that helped us tremendously on our application to SEMLEP for RGF money, and we've been successful in securing £3.2 million towards a building of an advanced digital manufacturing centre at Silverstone, which will be open hopefully in January 21. A little bit delayed with current world situations, but there's lots of opportunities to find funding support, and also to be more efficient with the monies you already have to be competitive in this time. And I think also doing what companies like KWSP have done, and a lot of motorsport businesses, which is to look at the opportunities as well as there's lots of downsides of what's going on at the moment, but there's also lots of opportunities coming out. We've spent the last 4 to 6 weeks getting involved in projects that we certainly didn't expect we'd be involved in at the beginning of this year, from COVID-19 testing kits to face masks and PPE. And I think you have to be alert, and you have to be aware of what opportunities there are to diversify and repurpose the skills that you have within your business. And as you've heard from Julian, Innovate UK have got mechanisms there to help you. And I strongly advise anybody that isn't already doing it to look at R&D tax credits. So I think probably the best thing would be to open up to any questions and see what specific thing people would be interested to know about Manuel.
Thank you, Kieran. And yeah, great to hear how you really grabbed opportunities and funding available, even from a local growth fund as well. So it's great to hear your success story. We just had a comment actually for you, Kieran.
Yep.
About the point you made of making sure your strategy is sound, and the funding might help you deliver that strategy better. So that was quite an important point you made there, not making the grants fit toward your fit your strategy, really. So,
yeah, really important. It's as Julian said, around the recent COVID-19 call that Innovate put out, over 8,500 applications. I think that's more an indication of actually how innovative the UK is, and how proactive SMEs are in sort of seeing difficult times and looking at opportunities to adapt, more than it is around sort of specific COVID-19 challenges. It's just an example of how we go about trying to do business. The Innovate UK work, you do need to be, because it's so competitive on those applications, you do need to write a good proposal. And the best proposal is one where you haven't had to make up a story, but one where you're actually describing the business that you want to do, and it makes most sense, and it will add up from the beginning to the end of the proposal. If you're cutting and pasting and trying to make an application that you think is going to fit a particular grant call, I'm pretty certain it will be unsuccessful. Is that right, Julian?
Yeah, definitely. I quite agree about your point that you know, you shouldn't be chasing the money, and particularly the open competition. You know, some of the other competitions are more niche, but the open competition is highly competitive, and we make no apologies for that. We want to support the best ideas. But that does mean you've got to be able to tell a really good story, and particularly to be able to tell a story about the commercial application of this, rather than I've come up with a great idea. What we're interested in is how you're going to turn that into a viable business.
Yeah, you know, we've had some successes and some definitely unsuccessful applications. And you know, the thing is, what you learn from all of that is that they take a lot of effort to do. So you really do need to be choosy about where you spend that effort, and try and target your applications to be successful. And you know, it's an unfortunate fact that not always is there a grant stream that is there when you need it to support the project you want to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what we've been trying to do is to get closer to the wider investment community. So, you know, sometimes it feels like there's one group of companies that look for public support, innovate grants, and there's another who are approaching the venture capitalist angel investor community. And what we want to do is to make that a bit more seamless. So, you know, be actively working with companies to help you on your growth journey, and at some stage be able to say, okay, we've got your investment ready. So we de-risk the project enough for a commercial investor to say, yeah, that's an interesting project, let's take it on, rather than be constantly looking for public subsidy, because you know, that's not good for a company to be having to go through a process of applying for grant funding to us all the time. It's a lot better if you can wash your own face through normal sources of commercial finance, or heaven forfend, paying for development out of your own profits. You know?
I think one of the other hidden benefits that isn't talked about too much around Innovate UK projects is because they are actively encouraging collaborative R&D, is that you do end up building consortiums that, you know, the outcome of the project commercially may not be what you originally expected, but it's through some other channels of the commercial relationships you've met through that collaborative R&D, and it really encourages certainly the bigger companies to work with the SMEs, which I think has been a big success of Innovate UK over the time that I've been involved in it.
Good. You didn't mention it, or if you did, I might have missed it, but have you ever done any work with the high value manufacturing catapults? Because obviously the catapult network is exactly to do that, is to put together academic research, big companies, small companies, to accelerate innovation.
Yes, no, in fact, one of our current Innovate UK projects has the MTC as one of the collaborative partners.
Great, good.
Kieran, did you, for the equipment you've been diversifying for COVID-19, how did you, I believe they have to be at a certain standard for the NHS?
So we started it off as an engineering and product development exercise, and just like a race car, actually, you know, there's a set of regulations that you need to design to. So we identified early on what those regulations were needing to be, and we've worked with collaborative partners, and then ultimately you just go to the it sounds simple, but you go to the BSI and you do your crash test essentially and do your qualification. But yeah, I mean, the thing is that perhaps we're a bit blasé about it, but the way that KWSP has operated since 2012, the whole idea is that we take on projects that previously we've had no preconceived ideas about how to solve those problems, and that gives us a distinct advantage. So we don't come to it saying, oh, we've been doing PPE for years, so we know exactly what the answer is. We come to it with a blank sheet of paper and look at it as an engineering challenge. And typically, as a result, we're able to short track a lot of processes, and we're able to come up with innovative ideas, because we don't say, well, that's the way we've always done it, and that's the way it has to be done. So yeah, the first thing to do when any new market you get involved with is do your research, understand the regulations, and work out who you can work with to get you to where you want to get to more quickly.
Okay, excellent. I think, Vic, we've got a question for you. Right. Is it true that many owners don't realize that their cost can be included, but only if they take salary and not dividends?
Yeah, you're right. The costs can be included, but clearly, if the cost of the owners, if they're taking dividends, that's all they can claim for, that dividend value. Sorry, the money that they're claiming out the businesses pay, which is normally around 10,000, something like that. They can't include their dividend, but they can include all the other material costs and consumables and employee costs. But equally, if they've got more than one entity as well, so if they've got two companies and they're doing bits of R&D in one company and bits of R&D in another, it's also possible to, if they've got charges between those two entities, is to form one claim and not lose those other costs that they've accrued.
Okay. Thank you. We don't seem to have any. Sorry.
I'll just say something about R&D tax credits as well. I think it's important to remember that, because people have said this to me before, which is that, well, that was a failed project, so that's not something that we could consider claiming for as legitimate R&D. It's like, actually, if it's failed, it's a very good demonstration that it was R&D.
No, absolutely. You know, HMRC are paying for the journey of the R&D, not the outcome. The outcome is immaterial. What they're paying for is the journey. So if it fails or it stalls and you put it into a corner and we should never seen it before, yeah, don't forget that those costs count. Unfortunately, and probably Kieran knows this, most people tend to move on from those things quickly and try and put them to the back of their mind. But you know, again, don't forget what the work you've been doing and does it fall within the scheme. It's about the journey, not the outcome.
I think it's also worth understanding how R&D works with your business before you start entering into new contracts as well, because how you structure the contracts and purchase orders can make a difference to who's carrying the risk, and certainly if you end up carrying a lot of the commercial risk, then it's very easy to demonstrate that you're taking the R&D element.
Okay, thank you. We don't have any more questions, but are there any other points you might want to stress or discuss between yourselves, or anything you wanted to add? No? Okay. All right. I think we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much, Julian, Vic, and Kieran, for your time today.
Yeah, pleasure. It's been a really interesting discussion, and if anyone does want to get hold of me, then please do so. Quite happy to do all I can to help.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to all of you who joined us today. We will follow up with an email with the recording of the webinar, the presentations of the two speakers, and we've got a short survey. So please, give us your feedback. It's important to us. We want to know, how valuable these are and what theme, to move forward with. So please, if you could give us your feedback, we would appreciate it. Here are details if you need to contact the Growth Hub for any support. And we wish you a good day. Thank you very much, all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.